work it out. All right, so I started my career in the computer industry back in the 80s, working with IT and having studied business administration. And around 2000, I met designers for the first time and had my first project with a designer. And I was flabbergasted. I thought it was magic. And I was really fascinated by the methods and the abilities of designers. And when I also learned that design was what it actually took to make sense of technology for people and for business, that's when I fell in love. And I spent the next 10 years learning about the design process and leading designers, trying to figure out what it took, to create an environment for designers and creative people at large to thrive. So almost 10 years ago, I started a new company called Eggs Design, together with a bunch of awesome designers. And my vision is to create the world's best workplace for creative people. And we've started doing that, and we're about 120 people now in 5 cities in Scandinavia, having global ambitions, of course. So today I'm going to share with you some of the myths that we keep running into about creativity and innovation, because our creative output is products and services, digital and physical, and also business transformation. And those myths, we still run into them. And I hope maybe that you can get some inspiration about those myths yourself. And I must admit that I was guilty of believing in those myths myself back in the days. Okay, let's start with the first one. Yeah, the first myth is about the creativity where people think that it belongs. I'm a little bit off here with the slides, but the creativity is for artists. Typically, you can click the next slide as well. Typically, we meet a business person who thinks that, no, you can click, please. Next slide. This guy. A business person who doesn't think that he's creative. He's like, no, I'm not creative, I can't draw. And he's like, okay, I express myself through Excel sheets and Word documents, but markers and colors, stuff like that, it's just not me. He has no creative confidence. If you click the next slide, in a kindergarten, we meet a bunch of creative people. I mean, there is no uncreative toddlers, right? We're all born with creativity, but we have unlearned that skill. Because when we start school, and also maybe at home, we learn that there's only one right answer. There's no room for exploration or coming up with new ideas. So we unlearn that skill, but it's still in there somewhere. It can be trained. So the good news is that creativity is also a muscle that can be trained. And next one. But it has everything to do with the environment. The environment in the kindergarten is a creative one. The environment in school is not that creative, usually. And in many workplaces, many workplaces don't have creative environments where people can be humans and not machines. Many workplaces are also about coming up with the one right answer, and it's about judging other people for their ideas. And in the end, we just keep our ideas to ourselves because we're afraid of looking stupid in front of the rest of the people if they don't like our ideas, or if they're a little bit hard to understand at first, because they very often are. The greatest ideas are not the ones that are the most obvious at first. So we've tried to build this environment in Eggs where people can be humans and not machines, but it's not only about happy-go-lucky all the time. It's also about friction and feedback and critique and creative criticism. It's very important to actually have an environment for innovation. And the next slide is this guy. So but we still have to kind of explain what design actually has to do with innovation. And we sometimes do it with the next slide, where we say that, okay, but the creative the design process is a creative process. And you can click the next slide, please. Yeah. You can click the next slide, please. Yeah, we say that the design process is a creative process that used to be about is about form and craft. Design comes from form and craft, and creative output very often comes in the form of some products or some physical stuff where function and aesthetics are really important. And that is still true. That is still super important for all designers to create aesthetics and functional products. But as time went by, you can click the next. Designers and other creative people started to taking more aspects into consideration, like the people who are going to use it, the people who are going to service a product, the technology that was available out there and that would be pushing innovation as well. And also, of course, the business needs need to be taken into account. So the world of innovation has become more complex, and the world of new ideas is encompassing all these factors. So, but this is still the same process. The creative process can be used in this type of environment, not only by designers, but by everybody who works with innovation. The next, please. And what we do at Eggs, at least, and many other of our colleagues in the business are focusing on 3 levels now, where form and craft is still super important and really the basis for everything. But the next level is the creative problem solving, that where we design services, it's becoming more abstract, we're solving business problems. And latest but not least, the last piece on the ladder here is really about business transformation, where you use the same creative process to solve complex business problems and to actually transform businesses, coming up with new business model, new partnerships, and all this complexity. So we work at all 3 levels. Forgot what I wrote on that slide. Yeah, you can go, you can click. Yes. So we also get this question. I'm sure that when you work in the creative industry, you've probably you've probably encountered this question as well. So can you just draw me a new logo? And if you're not like, doing logos, that's not what you do, but you have to kind of explain why. And it's the same thing that when I worked in the computer industry, I worked with big mainframes, and IBM, and people would say, oh, so you work with computers, you can probably fix my printer. And I probably couldn't. Next. Myth number 2 is that creative people will work for free because they're so passionate about what they do. It's like a hobby. It's just, you do it for fun, so you can just do it for free. Of course, that's not right. So I want to give you a story about the next slide, please, about a business school. And this was supposed to animate, so forget the last part. A business school called Rotman School of Management under the University of Toronto. And the Rotman School of Management have, for the last 10 years, they've arranged contests, challenges for business students and for design students. So they invite students from other universities to participate in this contest. And every year, who do you think wins? Designers wins. And the problem is not a typical design problem. It's a complex business problem that they solve for real business. And it's not the business designers or the business students who are the best at this. It's actually the design students who are actually best at doing this creative problem solving to solve complex business problems. And that should teach you something, because next slide. Where do these people go to work afterwards? Well, the best MBAs to the left, they go work for like McKinsey or other people and make shitloads of money. And of course, what McKinsey is charging. They're not working for free. And the best designers, they go work for the car industry for free very often. Why? Why is it like that? They have gone to school for the same amount of years. They probably have the same great grades, but they make so different choices. And the designers actually put up with it. Business students would never put up with working for free. Next. So if you work for free, if you say that you don't want to get paid or you don't have to get paid, then what you're saying is that your work has no value. Next slide. It's also was supposed to be animated, but it's not. So Mike Montero has just taken lots of room on the slide here. So if you don't know Mike Montero from before, I think you should look him up. He's written a book called Design as a Job. But this story is actually about free pitching, because like a couple of years ago, we were invited to do a pitch for a large Norwegian company. They were selling fast-moving consumer goods, and they wanted us to pitch for a new product for free. They wanted us to give all our ideas for free, and it's just not serious, because we did it like in a vacuum. We had no insight. We had no previous knowledge about their market, and they wanted us to do all this work for free. And of course, we said no, thank you. And I don't know where this comes from, but I think it's probably from advertising that have been pitching ideas for free in order to get like 2-year contracts, and maybe it makes sense. It's a huge sales proportion, but I think we should just stop doing that. I think we should stop pitching for free, because it's just downgrading and it's not. What other industries are doing that? I mean, McKinsey is not pitching anything for free. Okay, I think we have a slide issue. Can anybody speak to me, please?
Yeah, the presentation is back up, but I don't have any control over it. So I think it disappeared and you were full screen, but now it's back up. So I think we're on the slide with the baseball bat. So that's number 23.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to take the next one up.
I think it's coming up now. I think because there's an animation that kind of like blocked on the PowerPoint. So I did say throughout these webinars, if something goes wrong, I might have to do a little dance. So don't make me dance in front of my screen now. Yeah,
why don't you? I'm so sorry, I can't see you even. So I wish I could see you dancing. But I can dance. If you sing a song, I'll dance. Sing a song, Mark, and I'll dance for you.
I'm a very bad singer and have to get the shower on to be able to sing.
Yes, I'm a very bad dancer, so.
Yes, I'm just waiting. Sorry, I'm just waiting. I have no control over the presentation. There we go. There's a shark.
It's a shark. Previous slide, please. There you go. Are you going to share full screen, or how is that going to work?
It's coming up. I think there's a lag of actually when it clicks till it displays.
Okay. Okay. Well, this picture here is really easy to explain. It's about how there's a lot of stuff has happened these past 10 years, and one of them is that the big business schools of the world have started introducing design thinking to their students, and I think all of them now, with respect for themselves, have a design thinking class. It started at Stanford, but it's spread all over the world to every business school. So it means that it's the design thinking is being spread out, and you can have opinions. That's another. But I think that at least it has spread the word of how important the creative process is for business development. We're going through. We can stop there. Stop at the shark. The shark is about. The shark is about how large consulting companies and tech companies have acquired design consultancies and design agencies at an increasing rate. I think it's almost sold out now. So it means that these companies, what do they actually want from design companies? I think sometimes it's almost like, you know, a trophy wife in a way. It's a little sexy, but it's also about trying to learn and trying to acquire the creative capacities and the innovation powers that these agencies have. So I think there's another one, next slide, about this. Yeah, so I talked to some people at one of the, you know, Big Four is the large auditing companies and consultancies that in the world that are like Deloitte and EY and KPMG, and I've talked to the partners in one of these huge consultancies, and he said that, hey, look, we're great at solving problems. I mean, just throw a problem at us and we'll solve it. We have so many experts and we're great at problem solving. But today our clients come to us and they don't really know what the problem is. They don't know what they're going to live from in the next 5 years time. So we don't have any methods to attack that issue. And also he says that the world is becoming an increasingly complex place, and it actually takes much more collaboration. It takes working together with different disciplines, and we're not set up to do that. So that they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the creative powers, and they don't have the methodologies to actually solve tomorrow's problems. So next. Yeah, so basically design is becoming big business, and working for free is just not an option anymore. So if you're doing it now, stop it. Okay, next, please. All right, so myth number 3 is that great innovations come from a single genius. We kind of love the story of the lone creator, you know, the mad scientist alone in his lab, coming up with all these amazing new innovations and inventions. But most of these stories are just myths. For example, if you click the next slide, you have this guy. Thomas Edison were famous for inventing. He was famous for inventing the light bulb, but he invented maybe number 22 or 23 in a series of many light bulb inventions. But he took a lot of credit for actually inventing the light bulb. His greatest invention, however, is on the next slide, which was Menlo Park is what it's called. It was a big lab that he bought with money that he had earned from the telegraph industry, and invited lots of scientists and creative people into his lab. They were doing experiments, projects on their own. They were doing projects for his clients. They were doing projects for him. And they had this amazing creative environment where they would just come up with all these ideas and novel ideas and useful ideas that would eventually turn into many, many different types of inventions. That was his greatest invention, because you can, yes, you can click, because creativity or innovation is a team sport. So the myth of the lone creator, or the myth of the mad scientist who's just brilliant or genius, is actually very often not true, because it takes collaboration, it takes working together to come up with great innovations. And I think I have another slide, and I'm sorry that it's not animated because it's yeah, you need diversity, and the next one is a little bit about that. Yeah, it's supposed to be animated. I'm giving you everything up front here. But the thing is that there was a study by a couple of guys, their names is on the bottom of the slide. And the study was about, they studied Broadway shows over many, many years, decades of Broadway shows. And they looked at which ones were the most successful and which ones weren't, and which of these years actually had, what kind of teams were on these Broadway shows. And what they found was that some of these shows had teams where people knew each other really, really well, and others had shows where people didn't know each other, and then you had everything in between. And then they tried to figure out what was actually the best team set up for creating great innovations and novel shows. So they realized that during these studies that the magic number here is, on a scale from 1 to 5, is a 2.6. So it's not great for innovation if people know each other too well, because you kind of get groupthink, and it's not great for with teams that don't know each other at all. So having a mix is really the perfect way, but it cannot be a 2.6 team, because eventually they would become a 1. So it's really about the network. It's about having a team that's mixed, but then also having a network of people to source in for different aspects of the show in this case, but also, of course, for other types of innovations where this can be true. And the way we try to accommodate for that in eggs is, next slide, it's really by 2 things. It's by working with all industries. So we work with everything from healthcare to super heavy industries, oil platforms, candy even, and public services. And we have a large aspect of clients in all industries, and I think basically all creative companies have that. And we don't specialize in one thing, and people don't specialize in one thing. They actually are able to cross-pollinate ideas from and insights, especially from various industries, that can be useful in someplace new. That's second nature to I guess designers and other creative people. So if you take the next slide, another thing is what we try to do is to try to, okay, this is a little complex, but we have like a matrix organization where we have our habitats in different cities, right? And then we also have creative disciplines, and they kind of belong to bases, is what we call it. But when it comes to staffing a project, we would always pick people from different habitats and different disciplines, so that we can form a diverse team. And we also have teams that are able to draw on other people that are not necessarily on the core team, but that drawing from the company, which is why, as a design consultant, I think I think size matters. It's important not to be just 3 people working together all the time, but it's important to have at least a network or a larger company that you can draw different people into different projects. All right, next. So don't believe the myth that great minds think alike. Whatever your mom told you, it's not a good way of creating innovation anyway. Okay, next. The last one is that design is expensive. I think it's kind of and maybe it's even like an antidote to design should be for free, but maybe it's the same kind of notion. But we get this a lot, especially when we work with startups. You can take the next slide. Because we work with lots of startups, and we also work with lots of large companies, and everybody thinks that design is expensive, but especially startups, because they're bootstrapped for money. They kind of know that, and they accept. Hold on a second. They accept that they need to pay for lawyers, they need to pay for engineers and technologists, and that's never a question. But whenever it comes to design, it's like, nah, it's like it's too expensive. It's maybe it's like a luxury or something that they can't afford. But if you look at the evidence, there's a lot of evidence against that. If you look at take the next slide. You can start by looking at how many startups actually fail. 9 out of 10 startups fail. And the next is that the reason why they fail is very often that there is, or the largest reason is that there is no market for their product. So they haven't checked out that before they start building the project. And that's typical for the tech startups that we work with. They sit inside their garages for months and even years, come up with a great invention, and then go out and nobody wants to buy it. And they wasted all the time and all the money, where when you add creative people and designers, it's second nature to go out and test products early on before you actually have something. You probably all know this, but this is why design is really valuable for startups, even in an early stage, because you can start building something that looks like a product and you can test it in the market, even if you haven't spent all the money developing the actual product. Okay, next. So, and there's also a lot of evidence to all the value of design in these startups. It's an American survey that was done a few years ago. So there's plenty of evidence against the myth of that design is expensive. Next, please. There you go. And actually, when you look at it, we've looked at we've worked with more than 160 startups. And what we see is that the design effort is actually only maximum 10%, sometimes only 4% of the total effort, where the rest is software development or engineering, marketing, all the other costs of developing a product. And up until production, we've looked at the development period. Only max 10% of that is design. So, I mean, next slide. So there's a lot of evidence that design is reducing the risk, actually, of introducing a new product to the market. It not only for startups, of course, but also for large companies. And it also increases the success rate of a new product or service. Next, please. Yeah, and this is from a Danish survey a few years ago among bunches of Danish companies, also evidencing the value of design. So if you're looking for arguments, this is something to look into. Okay, next. So what I'm saying is that if you think design is expensive, try launching a product without design. Okay, so what's next? What's next for creativity and innovation? Next. There. Okay, so you remember that slide from before, and the picture now is so much more complex. All these technologies that are influencing everything today, and also all the problems of sustainability today. The world needs to become a more sustainable place. We are misusing our planet. We are misusing people, and there's just so many problems to solve out there. And design might not be the only answer, but at least the creative process and the innovations that come out of the creative process are vital for solving all these world problems. So you guys, you have a lot of work to do, and let's go craft lovable futures. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ulla, for the presentation, for the keynote. Sorry, it was a bit of a bumpy ride with technical problems to share the presentation. Yeah, very interesting. I've wrote down a few things. I mean, I'll launch the questions as well, so people feel free, the participants, to ask questions, and then we can dig them out of the questions section and ask them to you directly. You said something which I found really interesting, which I've come across only recently, where people say creative confidence, and that I think it was in relationship to this project where people said to me, so you don't see it as like there's no option that this project will fail. And I said, no. And they said, well, that's creative confidence. But I never heard that before. And the question is maybe to you, how do you, as a creative person, how can you build that creative confidence?
Good question. I think that term was coined by the people behind IDEO, actually, the creative confidence, and there's a book about it and a TED Talk. I think we do it a lot when we work with our clients, because we always start out in workshops with markers and post-its and walls and all that jazz. And the meetings always start with these business and engineers, a little high shoulders and their arms like this. I'm not going to grab those markers. I'm not going to do this. Stupid in front of all these creative designers. So I think that the creating, first of all, of trust and creating an environment of stupid. It's okay to fail. It's okay to say, you know, odd things, and have techniques, workshop techniques for that is helping. So we always end up, you know, fighting over the markets with those business people and engineers who started out with their high shoulders, because creating that environment is actually helping people understand that, okay, their ideas can also be useful. And also, I mean, helping people who, I mean, I didn't think I was a creative person until I understood that it's not about drawing. I know that I'm a creative person because I'm good at, you know, connecting the dots and using different parts of my brain, you know, intuitively. So I think everybody can learn this. And if you want to, if you don't have creative confidence today, I think, you know, read about it. That's all I can say. There's lots of TED Talks out there to watch too.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes maybe hand in hand as well with the second myth that you said, that creative people will work for passion alone or work for free. I think that's something that most creative people are faced with when they start off, because they are obviously very passionate about what they do, and a lot of people will use or abuse that with that saying, well, it's good experience, you know, it's good for your portfolio. But maybe what's a message for people?
Yes,
that
yeah, exactly.
I think it's maybe at the beginning of the career, because people actually want to get that experience. But what's your message, you know, for people that are starting out and that are still in that loop of saying yes too often to do something for free, or creating a freebie for a client? What could you advise these people?
Yeah. First thing is stop saying yes, and try saying no. It sounds easy, but it's super scary because you're afraid of getting rejected. We are faced with these very immature clients who don't understand the cost of the creative process. Then what we do is very often that we make them make a commitment, saying that, okay, if you want us to do something for free, we want you to commit to something more in the end. So we can say, okay, we can give you the first workshop for free, but then you have to sign a contract for you know, like, I don't know, 50,000 euros or something after that. So I think, you know, it's about negotiation, really. And I can recommend a great book about negotiation written by a former FBI agent called Never Split the Difference. So learn a little bit about negotiations, and also just stand on your own feet and be proud of what you do and value your work. I think it also starts with that. I only know about creative people who do this. I mean, even football players, they're just doing the hobby, right? And they make shitloads of money doing what their hobby is, if they're good at it.
Yeah, true. We have one question from Malin. In some companies, they create specific departments for innovation. So innovation departments. What are your thoughts on that? Can innovation be limited to one department?
No, innovation should be part of anybody's culture these days. I think it could start in an innovation department in a way, but I think that because then maybe the company can learn and understand what it is. But I think that definitely needs to be spread to the entire organization. Just the mindset and I think doing things like hackathons, you know, involving everybody, doing things like challenges that you can come up with. We have one client in the medtech industry. It's company. They have done internal startups with funding to actually create their products. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do to spread this into the entire organization. But thinking that you can limit innovation to just one group of people is very misled. And I think many companies are actually departing from that, because that was, I mean, I think of the past, like these innovation labs. It's like a lab, you know. You need collaboration with so many more people to actually spark the innovation of today.
Okay, well, thank you for that. There's we'll take one final question from Andrea. Ulla, Luxembourg has a rich theme of innovation running through it. coupled with multilingual, multi-ethnic workforce. However, it also has a strong tradition of conservatism. What advice would you give the country, so Luxembourg, to foster new, true creativity?
Oh, that's a tough. Without any insights about Luxembourg, I don't know. I think what you guys are doing at Lux Innovation must be really valuable, and showcasing that. For example, the circular economy labs that you're running now, showcasing it would be really valuable. And eventually, the conservative people would die out, right? So you just have to wait it out. No, kidding. Yeah, I think, you know, school systems really, really important for a country. How do you foster creativity in the school system? That's really where it starts. So as a country, I would definitely, if I was, you know, prime minister or something, definitely prioritize that. And also making sure that you have, you know, enough design schools. We have parts of Norway, and we see that how much more creativity there is in the cities where they actually have design institutes on their universities. So like in Stavanger, for example, they don't breed a lot of designers. So it's very engineer heavy. The engineers are the heroes, but designers is like, okay, we don't really understand what they're doing. So I think schooling, education system, and also making sure that you actually educate creative people and design thinking. In Bergen, for example, in Norway, they have design is very much part of their culture now, because they have put design thinking education into the business school. So there's a lot of business people walking around today with that background, and they understand they can't design anything, but they can definitely understand what it takes. And it also creates more jobs for designers that way, because the more you understand, the less you know that you know.
Yeah, true. Very good. Thank you very much. All written down, and things that we can maybe try to implement here as well in being even more creative, let's say, and innovative for the future. And then, yeah, as Andrea's question, I think, led to as a country, you know, to position itself. We've been, I think, Luxembourg, very innovative in reinventing ourselves constantly and changing the economic sectors that we were strong at to find that diversity, because we had no choice. And that's kind of like the situation very often a creative person finds themselves because they have no other choice to move forwards, you know, and then you have to find the next thing and try things, and it might not all prosper and not all work. But if you don't risk anything, then you will never know. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you so much, and apologies about the technical mishaps that we had for your presentation.
Yeah, I hope it worked out okay.
Yes, the messages were really good. I really like the analogy with the fullness of creativity and innovation, and the examples that you showcased and the explanation behind it. Yes, that was very clear, and I think very inspiring as well. And hopefully people that are still in that old mill of doing things and they can't get out of it, I hope that will have inspired them as well to put their foot down or fist on the table and say, I will finally say no, and creativity has a value and design has an importance. You know.
Exactly. And anyway, you can share my slides if you wish, even if I don't know, the fonts were looking a little weird on some of them, but you can go ahead and share. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll share them. We will use the file upload or even ask people and then send it to them via email. Thank you very much, Ulla. Thanks again for participating.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ulla. Bye-bye.